Can y'all hear me? If you can hear me, say I can hear you now. All right. Y'all go ahead and open up the Word of God if you have it. If you don't, look on your neighbors. Is this anybody's in here? Bible. Here's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to on Sampson 15 and 16. So you might want to just open up the book of Judges and find chapter 13. All I'm going to do tonight is just introduce the study in on Samuel. About halfway through, hey, we got music playing. Why do you sit way back there, Cindy? Why do you sit way back there? Well, see, you don't get to comment from back there. All right, we thank you for your word of God, which is infallible. He had long hair. He was the original hippie. So we'll begin in the text. Get the literary context. For example, you look at the paragraph. What is this about? Because if you know and say, well, it's all Bible. It all came out of the Bible, see? Put his finger on it. And it said Judas wise. And so, see, you can put two verses together. And so there's just a lot going on. So a lot of times if you don't understand the culture of what you're reading, and that's important in when you study Sampson. Look in two verses of Scripture. Read that for us. Judges 7, which is right in your own eyes. Now, find the very last verse of the book of Judges. Find the very last book. And so, when Joshua died, the book of Judges says, in the first 3 chapters, it says, a new generation rose up after him that did not follow the Lord. That's two verses, or basically two sets of verses. No king, group of people who do not follow the Lord. So if you got no king, you got no kingdom, and that means you got no until the Lord opens the womb, you see. And this is the way this starts off. Verse 3, then the angel of the Lord appeared to the woman and said to her, behold now, you are barren and have borne no children, but you shall conceive and give birth to a son. Now therefore, be careful not to drink wine or strong drink. What's the difference between wine and strong drink? Well, wine would be like anything that was grape juice. Didn't necessarily have to be fermented, just grape juice. All right. Strong drink would be grain alcohol, fortified wine, beer, any of that kind of stuff. All right. Or eat any unclean thing. For behold, you shall conceive and give birth to a son, and no razor shall come upon his head, for the boy shall be a Nazarite to God from the womb. And he shall begin to deliver Israel from the hands of the Philistines. Then the woman came and told her husband, saying, a man of God came to me. His appearance was like the appearance of an angel of God. Very awesome. I did not ask him where he came from, nor did he tell me his name. But he said to me, behold, you shall conceive, give birth to a son, and now you shall not drink wine or strong drink or eat any unclean thing. For the boy shall be a Nazarite to God from the womb to the day of his death. All right, what is a Nazarite? Anybody remember that? Not a Nazarene. A Nazarene, Jesus is called the Nazarene because he grew up in the town of Nazareth. This is a Nazarite. In Numbers chapter 6, you don't have to, it's about 20 verses there, that Moses gave the requirements for a Nazarite vow. Male or female could make a Nazarite vow, all right, but we don't read of any women ever making it. Basically, a Nazirite vow was like you would make a vow for a certain period of time. During that time that you were under the Nazirite vow, you couldn't cut your hair. You had to let it grow. You couldn't drink any wine, eat anything that had to do with grapes, period. Couldn't go near grapes. Couldn't eat raw grapes. Couldn't eat any kind of grapes. You could not be defiled by a dead body. In other words, if a corpse, and it even says if somebody falls dead suddenly beside you and touches you, you're under a Nazirite vow, you have to start the vow all over again. All right? But most people did it for a time period. When the vow was over, they went and presented themselves to the priest, brought a sacrifice to the priest. They cut their hair off and offered the sacrifice along with the hair. That was an offering to God, okay? Sounds strange to us, right? I mean, we ain't done that in church in a long time. So anyway, Sampson, on the other hand, God called him a Nazirite from birth, and he was supposed to be a Nazirite all the days of his life. All right? So that means all the days of his life, Sampson cannot eat any grapes, drink any wine, or have anything to do with grapes. Can't touch a dead body. Can't go near a corpse. Can't do anything unclean, is what the text said here. And he is supposed to not cut his hair. Okay? That's not too bad, is it? Huh? All right, maybe it is. I don't know. So, what I see here is I see a miraculous birth of a set-apart man. All right? This is a guy who from birth has been designated for a special purpose of God. And he's not to deviate from that. All right? Now, I told you that Samson is like a metaphor for Israel, right? What was Israel? They had a miraculous birth. God delivered them out of Egyptian bondage through the blood. They couldn't deliver themselves. Here you got a woman who can't produce children. God miraculously gives her a child and then sets him apart from birth for God's service. In other words, he's sanctified from birth. Israel was set apart for God, okay? And God made a covenant with Israel. And they were supposed to keep the terms of that covenant, all right? Problem was, just like Samson, they didn't keep the covenant, and neither did he, all right? And as you read the life of Samson, you're going to start thinking, you idiot. Why are you doing this? Well, that's what you read when you read about Israel. And honestly, that's what we reflect on ourselves sometimes, right? Like, I didn't need to do this. Why did I do it? It don't make any sense. Well, sin don't really make any sense. It don't. It's just foolish. All right? So, that's the introduction. Any questions so far about what I've said up to this point? Anything or comment or observation? Well, I'm not going to read through the whole thing, but his birth, his mother was instructed about the Nazirite vow, and Samson is to keep the terms. Now, turn on over to verse 15, if you will. His mother goes and she starts telling the husband, and then the angel of the Lord appears to both of them. In verse 15, then Manoah said to the angel of the Lord, please let us detain you so that we may prepare a young goat for you. The angel of the Lord said to Manoah, though you detain me, I will not eat your food, but if you prepare a burnt offering, then offer it to the Lord. For Manoah did not know that he was the angel of the Lord. And Manoah said to the angel of the Lord, what is your name? So that when your words come to pass, we may honor you. But the angel of the Lord said to him, why do you ask my name, seeing that it is wonderful? Basically, the word wonderful means it's incomprehensible. All right. Some scholars and some Bible students see this angel of the Lord to be a pre-incarnate Christ, that it was Jesus before he was born in Bethlehem. All right. The text doesn't tell us that, and we could say we believe that or say we disagree with that. It really wouldn't make any difference, but a lot of people believe that, but you can't prove it. All right. Why do you think he said he wouldn't tell him his name and give him any information and all that? Right. Go ahead, Ed. It's unproved that the angel of the Lord is the pre-incarnate Christ. There are some people who believe that this angel was Jesus, because Jesus always existed. He just was incarnated and became a human at Bethlehem through the virgin birth. But he's always existed. There's never been a time when Jesus didn't exist. Okay? And so a lot of people believe he just appeared in the Old Testament as the angel of the Lord. And that's just an opinion that people have. But they base that opinion on the fact that when they ask his name, he says, well, I can't tell you my name because it's incomprehensible. You wouldn't understand it if I told you. What if he did say, well, I'm Jesus Christ? Probably wouldn't matter much to him. So anyway, to just fast forward a little bit, Sampson then is born. It says in verse 24, the woman gave birth to a son and named him Sampson. And the child grew up, and the Lord blessed him. And the Spirit of the Lord began to stir him in Mahanadan, which means the camp of Dan, or the tribe of Dan, between Zoar and Eshtal. Now, I'm going to just start chapter 14, but I'm not going to go very far in it. I just want to point out, then Sampson went down to Timnah and saw a woman in Timnah, one of the daughters of the Philistines. Now, unless you study this, you won't find this out, but it's very interesting. Timnah was not in Dan, where he lived. You want to know where Timnah was? Say, I want to know where Timnah was. You do. All right, I'll tell you. Dan is over here north of the Sea of Galilee. If you head towards the Mediterranean Sea, before you get to the coast, there is a very fertile place called Timnah. Do you know what it's famous for? Grapes. Growing grapes. Vineyards. Producing wine. The first thing the dude does, right out of the chute, first grown-up deed, he heads to Timnah. So what does he do when he gets there? Well, let's find out. So, verse 2, he came back and told his father and mother, I saw a woman in Timnah, one of the daughters of the Philistines. Now, therefore, get her for me for a wife. I'll go get her, I want her. Do you not think there's a good-looking woman in Dan or in Judah or in Reuben or any of those tribes? What do you see happening here? Now remember, his life is a metaphor for Israel. Ultimately, God brought about his plan through the life of Samson. But I think it's ironic that here's a man under a Nazirite vow who's separated unto God, whose life from birth was supposed to be no grapes. And by the way, what does the Bible in the Old Testament always call the worship of idols, for Israel to worship idols? The Bible's always got a name for that. Well, it is an abomination, but it's always called spiritual adultery. God always calls it spiritual whoredom. Okay? And it's always mingling with the pagans that got the Jews in trouble. So here you got a guy who's had a miraculous birth just like Israel, who's separated to God just like Israel, who's run down here to Timnah where they grow grapes and found a Philistine bride. You see any parallels here? Yeah. And so I think Samuel's writing a story here for people to read and say, you know, it's timeless, really. It's timeless. Right. Verse 3, then his father and his mother said to him, is there not a woman among the daughters and relatives among our people, that you take a wife from this uncircumcised Philistine? But Samuel said to his father, get her for me, because she looks good to me. What's wrong with him? He doesn't value his heritage. He doesn't value his people. I mean, this guy's starting off bad. Okay? No. But see, that's his problem, because he values them the wrong way. And they take advantage of that all the time. I mean, this is his downfall. And you're thinking, how could the strongest man in the world be so stupid? Say you got a lot of one thing, not the other, huh? Well, you're probably right there. But well, think about this. When Israel, the nation, was walking in the covenant with God, they were undefeatable. Remember I told you about this cycle? Sampson is living out the cycle. You see? And so now he's departing from God, and we're going to see how that gets him. I can't remember what you was right about, Doug. Oh, well, that's a deep question there. Well, I didn't say they had to, though. That's just what they did. All right. Now, I'm going to talk about one more thing, and then we're going to stop this and go to this next thing. This next episode, verse 5. Well, it's like watching a soap opera. I mean, this guy's... Well, I don't know what you call it. Then Sampson went down to Timnah, and his father and his mother came as far as the vineyards of Timnah, where he ain't supposed to be. And behold, a young lion came roaring toward him. The Spirit of the Lord came upon him mightily, so that he tore him as one tears a young goat, though he had nothing in his hand, and he did not tell his father and his mother what he had done. So he went down and talked to the woman, and she looked good to Sampson. And when he returned later to take her, he turned aside and looked at the carcass of the lion. And behold, swarms of bees and honey were in the body of the lion. So he scraped the honey into his hand and went on eating as he went. When he came to his father and his mother, he gave some to them, and they ate it. But he did not tell them that he'd scraped the honey out of the body of the lion. That's a weird story. All right. So, what's the point? All right, let me help you. All right. What was the terms of his covenant, of his Nazirite vow? not to touch anything dead. He was supposed to stay away from dead people especially, but no unclean thing. So here's this lion that comes out of nowhere and attacks him. The Spirit of God comes on him like nobody's business. I believe muscles ripped out of him. He had muscles bulging out of his ears, man. He grabs that lion up, didn't have a weapon, didn't have a stick, didn't have anything. He just starts pulling him from limb to limb. There you go, cat. Threw him down there and walked off. Now, again, I'm comparing Samson's life to how Israel lived. When the enemies attacked the Israelites that were walking in covenant with God, they had full strength. They beat everybody, all right? And so Samson should have left well enough alone. He comes back and he sees something sweet inside this thing that's forbidden. You ever see something sweet inside something forbidden? If you ain't never been tempted, all right? And so what does he do? He transgresses his vows and dips out a handful of that honey, and it tasted good to him. This is the sin, the whole sin process here. All right? And so we're going to see how this continues in the life of Samson as we get back into it next week. But you're going to read the story a different way now. So maybe you ought to start in 13, read through 16, and just compare him to what you know about how the Jewish people in that time, how they would fall into the same traps that you see Samson doing these dumb things. And you think, why? And then you have to ask yourself, well, what do I do? Because I'm a lot like Samson, that's why. All right? All right, so that's going to end our Bible class for Facebook, because what I got here I can't do on Facebook. Thank you for joining us. If you're out there somewhere, and come back next week and we'll look at Samson. Right now what I want to do is, if you want one of these, you can have them. If you don't want one, you don't have to take one. Doug, will you